You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, your weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your hosts, Steph and Tara, every Wednesday morning as they dive into a new witchy topic. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. This is Steph.
And this is Tara.
And you're listening to episode 24, Using Oils in Witchcraft.
Woohoo!
So, oils, we decided were a next logical progression in everything that we've been talking about. Because oils can be used in similar ways that crystals are used, candles, and we also have herbs coming up. So we decided to get kind of like all of these basics out of the way first.
The building blocks.
The building blocks, yes. So we wanted to talk about all of the different types of oils and using them in your practice. So the first thing that we wanted to mention is that we are going to be talking about spell oils. So spell oils are different from essential oils. So that's something that you need to know right off the bat, because essential oils are very concentrated and therefore by themselves are usually not safe for skin. So we wanted to address
and she
that.
Says that, but it really is not good for you. Don't get them confused.
Yes, essential oils are very highly concentrated. Now, a lot of the spell oils that we're going to talk about do include essential oils in them, and we'll talk about that. But just to start off the bat, you don't want to go using essential oils, especially on your skin, because they can be highly toxic.
Yes.
So there are three categories of oils that are generally used when talking about oils in witchcraft. And those are anointing oils, dressing oils, and conditioning oils. So anointing oils
are my fave.
Yes, anointing oils have been around since biblical times. So they are often used in more religious ceremonies, and they are skin safe, because anointing oils means you use them to anoint your body in a specific way in order to attract the intention in. Dresses, candles, items, tools, motos, etc. So it's not necessarily skin safe. There are a lot of online companies that sell dressing oils, especially through Etsy and things like that. And they will usually say on there if they are skin safe. If it does not say that, you might want to go ahead and ask the manufacturer just to make sure, because you don't want to go putting this on your hands and then you have some sort of reaction to it. Yeah.
So keep in mind, anointing oils you can often use as dressing oils, but not the other way around. That's a good way to think about it.
Correct. And the final category is condition oils. And like the name suggests, they are oils that help bring or remove a specific condition. So there could be, a love oil that's used to attract the condition of love. And then there's something like, a crossing oil that's used to remove that specific crossed condition. So these are similar to anointing oils, but they don't have that same sort of religious aspect. And this is also known as intention oil or spell oil. So this is another one. Between the two, you're going to find dressing oil and condition oil most often.
Yes.
Especially on things like Etsy, you'll definitely see a lot of spell oils. That's generally what they're called.
Yes.
So how do you use them in witchcraft? Like all of the things that we talked about, the very first step is always charging and activating. So we've said that about crystals and the candles and everything else, like tarot cards, anything that you use in your magical practice, you want to charge it first, you want to cleanse it, and then activate it. So the best way...
This is our theme. Always starts with a theme.
Yes, everything needs to have your intention and your energy in it to work well with you, and oils are no different. So when you buy an oil, you're going to, if you go into a shop or order it online, it generally comes in a glass or plastic bottle. They're usually smaller, and you can see kind of the herbs and sometimes crystals floating around in it. That's generally spell oil. So what you want to do is hold this bottle, and while you're holding it, tell it what you want it to do. So you want to infuse your energy and your intention, whatever your working is going to be. Tell it what you want to do while you're holding it, and then shake the bottle to activate it. You can also take a little bit of the oil that you're going to be using and place it onto your hand and rub your hands together until it's warm. That's another way to activate it.
I love that method because you can actually feel your energy going into the oil that way.
Yes, I agree. I would say I do it that way most often. I don't work with oils too much, but when I do, I generally rub it between my hands.
Yeah. That's my personal preferred method.
Then the different ways that you can use them is a lot of fun. So first of all, you can use them on the whole body or on certain spots. So if you want to use it on your whole body, you rub it between your hands and then rub it across your skin. So if you want to attract something, you move from your feet to your head. And if you want to remove something, you go the opposite way, head to feet. You remove it out of your body. And in order to use it in specific spots, say that you have a love oil, you would want to use that over your heart. Or if you're using an oil for sort of clarity or third eyesight, you would do that on your forehead. You can just dab it on, or you can use it in like a sigil pattern that we talked about. See, this is why we talked about the sigil. So I go in order. Makes sense.
It's building block.
So it all depends on the type of oil. Another way that you can use the oil is in a ritual bath. So if you have a skin safe oil, you can add that to bath water. There are a lot of ritual baths that are, magic in and of themselves that are just, for self-love and healing and things like that. But a lot of witches also use ritual baths before they are going to go into a more ceremonial or more difficult ritual. They do the bath first as sort of a cleansing. So using a similar oil to the ritual that you're going to do in the bath water just like helps intensify that energy and that idea that you're working towards.
I find this really nice too before if I'm doing any coven work, which is very, very, very rare for me. But if I am, I find that this helps cleanse my intention, as it were, or my energy. So I work better with the group because I'm so used to working alone that I don't want to override the group.
That makes sense.
So I find that helpful in this sense. So, yeah.
So another way you can use it as a dressing oil. So this is most often used in candle magic,
this is my favorite.
which we talked about the different ways that you can dress your candle. So oil is one of them, where you would just put it in your hands and then rub it directly on the candle before you burn the candle. So it's sort of the opposite way that you dress the body. So if you are trying to remove something, then you want to start at the top and go to the bottom. And if you're trying to attract something into your life, you want to go from the bottom to the top. And the reason that it's opposite, I mean, like we always say, you do whatever works for you in your witchcraft practice.
Yeah. There's always that.
But the reason that this sort of makes a little bit more sense is you have to think about the way the candle burns. So if you're trying to remove something, you want it to start burning and removing right away. So from that top spot. And if you're trying to attract something, you want it sort of at the base. So it's like a longer time to burn down.
Intensify.
Yes. And another way to do it is to start in the middle and go from the middle up and then the middle down. And that's for if you are trying to just keep things the way they are. So if you have enough love in your life right now, but you're not trying to lose any either, you address your candle from the middle.
I do dress candles from the middle for like Sabbats because I'm celebrating. I'm not really inviting anything or trying to expel anything. It's just an all around object that I'm kind of celebrating. And so I do that for Sabbat candles.
That makes sense too. Another way that you can use oils is to use them in a warmer to add intention into an entire space, which is also really good for coven work. Like Tara said, if you want everybody to be feeling this same intention, especially if your oil has some sort of scent of, herbs or some essential oil added into it, then it will infuse that into the entire space you're working in, which is how you could dress something a little bigger than a candle.
Yes.
And the last way to use it is to use on continuous workings. So something like a mojo bag is something that you want to keep reinfusing with intention. It's not something that you just
Yes.
do the ritual once or burn the candle once and then you're done. People make mojo bags to carry around with them. And you have to keep reinfusing your energy into that bag to keep it working. And putting this oil on the bag, again, drawing it in, a sigil on there is a way to keep that continuous magic going without having to redo the entire mojo bag every time.
Yes. And if you're into moon magic as well, I find that for my personal workings, if I'm doing a mojo bag, I re-anoint it at the new moon every month while I'm using it, just to reinvigorate it for the month ahead.
One of the questions that comes up a lot is what do you do with leftover oil, especially if you rub it between your hands like we were talking about, you may have a lot left on your hands. So the answer to that is it depends on what kind of oil you are using. So if you
and how much you're using.
if you are using something that's negative, even though it feels wasteful to just sort of like wash that away, it's probably the best idea to just, remove that. But if you are using something to attract, you can just rub it into your skin. That's why we like the skin safe ones. Or use it in a similar way on something around your home. So for example, if you are using a some sort of protection or prosperity oil, you can go ahead and rub the rest of that like on your front door. Or if you are doing some sort of love oil, rubbing it on the bed is a good way to do it on your hands.
A lot of times what I end up doing when I'm doing like a blessing or something is I rub it on window frames, and then any breeze that comes into my house still smells like it.
Oh,
And
that's so nice.
it makes me happy. It's probably not the greatest for my window frames, honestly, but I love it. So I do it anyway.
So the last thing that we wanted to talk about then with oils is how do you make your own spell oil? Because that's always fun.
It is fun. I totally
So
recommend
there
this.
are a ton online. So if you want to order it, especially if it's something more complicated, then absolutely go for it.
I always recommend ordering a few before you try and make your own, because even though it is simple to do, you'd be surprised at some of the things that you like in your oil that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Like crystals is not something I would ever think to add to oil until I got one from Etsy that was perfect. Like, so sometimes it's good to order them before you try and make your own, just to kind of see what works and what doesn't. But don't ever be afraid to make your own because it's actually fairly simple.
So all you need in order to make your own is a airtight jar, an oil, and dried herbs. That's like the basic recipe there.
Mm-hmm.
You need an airtight lid because you want to seal it. Cork doesn't really work because it lets air in and the oils can seep into the cork. So don't want that airtight lid. And for oil, I find that grapeseed oil tends to be expensive. And it's a very like thin texture. If you think of olive oil is very thick. So it makes it a little harder to work with. Grapeseed oil is very thin. Some other good ones are also almond oil and jojoba oil, but those two are a little bit more expensive. But jojoba oil is also very luxurious. So if you're doing something that's like self-love or putting it in a ritual bath, that could be a good way to go. So the type of oil doesn't necessarily matter, but I find grapeseed works the best.
So I also like grapeseed, but not if you're going to put it in a bath. It's so thin. Just keeping in mind that the oil doesn't matter necessarily, but also think about what you're going to do with it.
And then you want to add dried herbs. So you don't want to use fresh ones because they're going to be sitting and steeping in the oil. And if you use fresh, they're going to go rancid in there. So,
and it's real like on a dime. They go rancid fast.
So definitely dried herbs. And another option that you can do is crystals, but definitely look into the crystals before you're going to add them in because some can leach some harmful things in there, like malachite leaches harmful things, and tourmaline will leach aluminum, and you don't want to put aluminum on your skin. So there's lots of things, but a lot of them are very safe. Like aventurine, amethyst. Those things are fine. So,
but again, if you're just starting out, maybe leave the crystals out of your
yes.
first mix.
So the way that you do it is cleansing the jar first. We've talked about the different ways to cleanse just about anything, tarot decks, candles, and everything. You can run it through smoke. You can use water. You can cleanse it in the sunlight, anything like that. Just make sure it's completely dry. And then you want to add in the herbs. We are going to have, not next week, but the one after that is going to be all about herbs, because next week actually is all about the next Sabbath on the Wheel of the Year, Letha. So the one after that is going to be about herbs. So we'll tell you like a bunch of different kinds and then we can use them and things like that. You can mix different ones. You just want to make sure that the herbs have the same correspondence as whatever your intention is for this oil that you're making. And then you want to charge the herbs with your intention. Really, that's just, holding them in your hand before you add them into the jar and just tell them what you want them. Ask them, this is what I want. This is what I want you to do. Please work this way. And then fill your jar about 1/3 full with the herbs. And then the same thing if you're going to add any, crystals. You also want to cleanse and charge those, add those in, and then add your oil. And then if you want, this is when you would add any essential oils. Like we said, just be careful working with them. They really have to be diluted. There are calculators online that will tell you based on how much oil you use, how much essential oil, like drops of essential oil you can use in there. But yeah,
if you're in any kind of normal thing though, if it says add 10 drops, recheck that. That's a lot.
Yes, you need very, very little of these essential oils. So
yeah, 1 to maybe 3 drops, because that's how concentrated.
So be very careful. So once that's all together, you just want to charge it a last time, hold your hand over it and say your intentions again, and then place the seal on it. So then you want to mix it, and the ways that you can mix it also depend on what you're going to be using it for. So if it's, a prosperity oil or success, maybe that you're going to be on a job hunt, you want to shake it to mix it, because that's what you want to do, right? When you're job hunting, you want to get up off your butt and go look for a job. So it's, this fast-paced sort of shaking motion. And
I like to shake them all, even though maybe I shouldn't, because I like to put on music that helps me set my mood and shake.
Yeah, most of them that I use is shake them. But if you are going to be doing something that's for like peace and anti-anxiety and things like that, you actually just want to turn it, just sort of rotate it.
Yeah, don't actually shake
so it goes nice and slow. So that's how it works. So after you have it all mixed, then you want to let it steep. And you should do this for at least 2 weeks, but more like 6 to 8, like a full lunar cycle or 2.
Yeah, I always leave mine to steep at least a lunar cycle. If it's a bigger working, I try to wait at least Sabbath to Sabbath, which is about 6 weeks.
I think that makes a lot of sense. That is everything that we have to tell you about oils this week.
So we're not going into our favorites because we have opinions on that too.
But always have opinions on that. But maybe we will share some of those opinions on Instagram. So check over there if you want to know what some of our favorites are and see how we use them. But other than that, we will see you next week to talk all about Letha.
I'm so excited for Letha. I just want everyone to know I'm very, very excited. Can't come soon enough. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Follow us on Insta.
Thanks for listening to Witch Wednesdays with Steph and Tara. Love our content? Consider donating at anchor.fm/witch-wednesdays to help keep our podcast up and running. Please leave us a voicemail on that same site if you have any questions or comments, and follow us on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast.